I don't go to hyperbole. The term heroic comes to mind in a sports sense. I think it certainly was that. I'm not going to put it on some kind of magnitude that's beyond sports, but from a sports standpoint, Kevin, we'll start with you, go to Steve, go to Tony. Justin Fields, that was a performance for the ages.
Yeah, Michael Jordan had the flu and had to score 55. He didn't take a helmet to the guts the way that Justin Fields did, and throws for a Ohio State bowl record 6 touchdowns. I mean, he was torquing his body and making 60-yard throws. The long touchdown to Chris Olave, the long touchdown to Jamison Williams. And for as well as the Ohio State offensive line played and everything, it wasn't like Fields was completely untouched after that point. He did kind of have a moment or two where Clemson defender or 3 got a hand on him. So it really was a heroic performance for what he was able to do. You know, I've had a lot of people come up to me and be like, oh, he's milking it, or, you know, that kid, you know, if it's not one thing, it's something else. Go ahead and take a helmet from James Skalski in the guts, and and tell me what you think about that type of situation. It's one of those quarterback performances that's going to live forever at Ohio State, especially because we went so many years without those types of quarterback performances, as it was placeholder handing it off to placeholder handing it off to placeholder.
Yeah, I think you have to give him credit for being very courageous and being a tremendous leader. I was in the end zone in the first row of the stands taking photos, was my location. And he took that hit, and it was a heavy hit. I mean, it hurt, and he did leave the game for one play. And it was so reminiscent, obviously, of Shaun Wade having the targeting penalty against Trevor Lawrence the year before. And Skalski, who actually had a targeting penalty in their loss to LSU in the championship game, he was sent out again. In this instance, Fields went out for one play. They handed off. C.J. Stroud came in and he handed off. And then Fields jogged back onto the field, but he was very ginger. He was just kind of hobbling as he came back on the field. And I was looking straight at the referee, the white hat from the Big 12, and he looked him in the eye and said, "Are you okay?" And wanted to make sure that Fields was okay physically. And here's Fields, barely able to jog onto the field. Well, not only was he okay, he took the snap and rolled out and threw a perfect touchdown pass. I mean, it was uncanny. And then he went to the medical tent. And as we understand, got a shot. Quick examination by the trainers and the doctors over there, was deemed okay to continue playing, and went on and just had this amazing game. And he needed to have a big game, guys, because he had not played well against Northwestern without Chris Olave, and he needed to have a great showing. His pro stock, his NFL stock could have slipped a notch or two. I saw one projection from USA Today now has him behind the BYU quarterback down at like number 4 going to Atlanta or something along those lines. So, which for him, being a Georgia kid, that'd be probably a dream come true if he's able to lead his home state team to some big things down the line. But first things first, back here at Ohio State, 385 yards, 6 touchdowns, 43 yards rushing. He did not run the ball a whole lot after that injury, and that's a big question for this game coming up. He wasn't able to run the ball last year in the loss to Clemson. Will he be able to run the ball all this year against Alabama? And that'll be an important part of their offense if he's able to do it. So I'm interested to see where this goes from here. Obviously, there'll be a lot of people watching him in warm-ups. That's the next chance you're going to get to see him on a football field, because they're going to have everything else on lockdown the rest of the way. Certainly, they're not going to show you much of anything. If he's even able to practice, we don't even know. Coach Day said he's definitely going to play, but, to what degree and how well remains to be seen.
Well, since Kevin threw some shade at my guy Michael Jordan, me being a Chicago fan, I'll throw some back at the Dodger fan, Kevin Noon. Yes, would I compare this to 1988 Kirk Gibson getting injured, pulling a groin, stepping out of his walk-in tub probably, and then coming in to face Dennis Eckersley and hitting a meatball home run.
Ring.
Cheap home run against a worthless pitcher like Dennis Eckersley. No, I think this was a little bit more impressive what Justin Fields did. It's funny because Tom Orr and I were talking about this, my partner on my podcast. Is this the greatest individual performance in Ohio State history? And the thing is, We were saying
It's
the
up
same thing about Trey Sermon the game before, where he rushed for 331 yards and was the single biggest reason why Ohio State won that game. And then for Justin Fields to do what he did, while he was definitely hurt, the thing that keeps going through my mind is after the game, when he got onto the Zoom call with reporters and sits down in his chair, he is like, ouch. He's like, speaking the pain, like, he's verbalizing all of the things that hurt as he's sitting down, and then doing the same thing as he's getting up. And we all saw him on the exercise bike on the sideline trying to get on it and showing this grimace of pain. It was the same thing after the game, finally talking to reporters. And yeah, there was no milking it, because I mean, we all saw the hit. It looked pretty serious to me. And if you want to go ahead and milk it, go ahead. But I don't think it was. And then to go on and just throw the ball so well. The one interception, Ryan Day said it was his fault, not Justin Fields. He said we should have been running the ball there. And I think his hand got hit or something, and the ball fluttered. But I don't recall a better Michigan or a better quarterback performance. It's up there with like the Troy Smith Michigan performance of maybe like 2004, where he just did everything for the Buckeyes. But I think this is better because the circumstances, the doubt that so many people had faced following that Northwestern game, myself included, because that game, spooked me. It's like, well, where did this come from? We've never seen this before. How easily can Clemson replicate this kind of defensive performance? Because if Northwestern can do it, surely almost anybody else could do it. But from the get-go, he was calm and he was accurate, and he was regardless of what happens against Alabama, I think he's cemented himself as Ohio State's greatest quarterback of all time again.
A lot of people owe Northwestern an apology. That game had more to do with Northwestern than Ohio State not being a good team. And of course, a different team to a certain extent shows up every day, the Luke Holtz comment. But with all due respect to Trey Sermon, and in some respects, I think he actually played as well or better in this game against Clemson than he did against Northwestern. I thought that the yardage was tougher gained. He was running mad. He was running with an attitude, but both efforts by him were exceptional. But how many other guys in the nation could have taken Trey Sermon's spot and did similar damage versus, for as great as Trevor Lawrence is, Justin Fields might be the only collegiate quarterback on the planet who could have pulled off that performance. It could be argued. That said, we'll start with Steve. Do we have any inclination? Of course, there are not injury reports. We don't have the information readily available to us. It's so much speculation. But how prepared he's going to be from a health standpoint with the ribs to face Alabama?
Well, obviously, Coach Day is not going to give you a diagnosis of where things are at. He was asked 3 or 4 different times very pointedly on his call Monday about that. Fields himself was supposed to appear on the call, but didn't. I think we're supposed to still get him maybe tomorrow, I guess, on a media call. But the issue to me is what can he stand? What can he abide in terms of pain as he gets into this? And how limited is his mobility and his range because of it? Is he able to have full motion and range and be able to do all the crazy different things that he can do when he's healthy? And if he can't, then that limits what Ohio State can do offensively, in my mind, if he's not completely 100%. On our site, we had a report that it sounds like he's going to be okay. There was no structural damage, no broken rib, so to speak. So that's good, but it's still painful. Bruised ribs are no fun. Any of us who've had them. I've never had a broken rib, thank God. But I know just breathing can sometimes be a tough task, even with bruised ribs. So, I just think that he's going to try and tough it out. I mean, that's been his MO throughout all this. And so that's all you can hope for with this kid. And again, you don't want him to put himself in harm's way and endanger his long-term health or safety or anything. At the same time, nobody wants this more than he does. And so wild horses aren't going to keep him away from that field on Monday. And he's going to do everything he can to lead his team to one more victory in a championship that would etch their place in Ohio State and college football lore forever. So Ryan Day, a few weeks back, started coining this phrase that, it's got the potential to be one of the greatest stories in the history of college football. And I don't even think at the time he understood the magnitude of where this thing was headed or what it could turn out to be. But man, he seems awfully prophetic right now. They are 160-minute football game away from, being considered, again, one of the most amazing feats in college football history, to go from not having a season in September to winning the national championship, quite possibly, if they could somehow upset Alabama. And again, we've lived through this before, where it was a foregone conclusion. It's a done deal. Miami was supposed to beat Ohio State like a drum back in 2003. Alabama was supposed to roll up Ohio State and its backup quarterback Cardell Jones in 2015, and neither of those things happened. And I don't know that this is necessarily a vintage Alabama team, offense and defense. They got a great offense, but I think their defense is a little susceptible. And again, can Justin Fields exploit some of that? So again, interested in getting into that and seeing which way it goes.
Yeah, we remember last year what a limited Justin Field looked like coming down the stretch. He laid on the field against Penn State and Michigan, and we were looking at which brace he was wearing. Was it the heavy brace? Was it the cloth brace? Whatever the hell a cloth brace is. And then he trots out for the Clemson game with the heavy brace on, and we know that Justin the runner is not going to be there. So we've seen what a limited Fields looks like. We saw him in the game, probably on, with whatever shot they gave him or whatnot, being able to throw the ball 50, 60 yards or whatnot. And we're hearing that he's fine, but, fine and great and perfect are all, very, very different shades of gray at that point. You wonder what type of running element he's going to have, because I don't care how great your defense is. A mobile quarterback is always a bit of an equalizer in terms of the equation and whatnot. I can't imagine that they would put Fields out there in harm's way, since the drop-off between number 1 and number 2 in the quarterback depth chart is so great, because Ohio State, based on only having 7 games, based on just the weirdness of the schedule, never got any reps for any of the young guys. No reps, really. I think C.J. Stroud has less than 20. Jack Miller has less than 10. It's not a great situation there, but you do have to have enough of that threat. But, when you have Trey Sermon running the ball so well, they have a nice little back there with Mayan Williams, by the way. Let me tell you that. He's fun to watch. And, whether or not Master Teague is able to go due to, with whatever's going on with his health concerns, as long as Mayan Williams can hang on to the ball, I want to see him get a couple of carries, not at the point of taking away valuable carries away from Trey Sermon. But I think that that's somewhere that you try to make up maybe some of the lost offense by not putting Justin Fields in those types of situations. You have him go on plays to where he's getting to that sideline and he's able to step out of bounds, because, I'm not going to insinuate that Alabama would hit him extra hard or in a certain position, but you play to win the game, and you can play within the whistle and play hard and play physical without playing dirty. And if I know an opponent is a little bit vulnerable, you go for that if you're trying to win a national championship. This isn't some meaningless exhibition. So many games along the way are, but this one, the winner hoists the big leg lamp trophy. So you do whatever you can to win.
It's a major award. But I think even with Justin Fields, when he runs, to avoid contact, he'll slide down, but even that's going to be painful, like depending on, which side he slides on, because, he was hit in the back, and if he's sliding on his hip and his hip was hurting, and then it changes your thinking, do I slide on my right hip instead? And then you're moving the ball around as you're getting hit, and, maybe there's some fumble issues there as well, although once you start the slide, you're not supposed to be hit anymore, so the ball should be safe at that point. But I still think he's going to take off when when he needs to. This is the last game. This is his last game in college football, more than likely. And so there's no reason to the minutes don't carry over anymore. You're not going to take any of it to the locker room. You're going to leave it all out there. And so far he's shown the willingness to do that. I think he's frustrated by the fact that you get to this point and he's not 100%, just as he wasn't against Clemson last year. And you wonder if he's thought to himself, like, I could have done more last year, but maybe I chose not to. And then you get into the whole aspect of injury versus being hurt. And if he's just, if he's just feeling pain, if he's just hurting, then maybe it becomes a mental thing where it's like it doesn't exist. Whereas injuries exist, bruises and whatnot, he can get over that. Pain is temporary, that sort of thing, just the machismo of it. And does that get him through the tough yards, 3rd and 7, and he takes off and picks up 8 and dives for that last yard rather than sliding? There are going to be instances like that where he may get up slowly, and he may get up so slowly at some point Ohio State has to call a timeout just to get him, a breather and then, get him back to going. But it will be interesting to see what Alabama does when they can get a chance to. Is there a 15-yard late hit? Is there a penalty for, taking him to the ground and then landing on him, where it's almost a good hit, but then you land on him to squeeze a little bit of life out of him, and it's just 15 yards. And I don't know that it's dirty. It's just guys hitting quarterbacks. And wouldn't be surprised to see Ohio State do the same thing, just because this is one of those games where every single play could decide the game. And as long as you're going to hit the quarterback and the quarterback is going to have the ball, you're not going to let up. You're not going to try to, I don't want to get a penalty. You're not worried about the penalty. You're trying to kill that guy in a figurative sense. And if the ball comes flying out or you get penalized, then that's kind of the breaks, and it could go great for you or it could go bad for you, but you don't know that at 100 miles per hour.